Hi, my name is Erwin McManus, and you're listening to the Battle Ready podcast. This is part 2 of Starting from Scratch with Erwin Raphael McManus, my dad. And normally you introduce yourself, but I'm getting to introduce you to today. This is an exciting day. Your brand is launching today.
Today.
Yes, it's a pre-order.
Yes.
And
so we'll have a shipping date of around December 10th or so.
Yes.
But you can order now, and because all my pieces are limited pieces.
Yes.
Once they're gone, they're gone.
Genuinely, each piece is unique and different, which is kind of the coolest thing ever. Your jacket is from the new line, and this is a Chore Jacket.
This is a Chore Jacket. It's a multi-paneled, multicolored piece of reconstructed vintage.
So cool.
And
they fit amazing. And I'm really excited because if you're going on the website and you're checking this out and you're like, I thought he was a pastor. I thought he was an author.
I think this is technically.
I thought he was a father. I thought he was a speaker. I thought he was a businessman. Well, here you go. We have a new label. You're turning bright red right now. You're turning bright red, and I love it. You are a creative director and a designer. Mm-hmm. And what I love about you is that you're integrating themes from messages that you've given at Mosaic kind of into this line.
Absolutely. This
idea of nothing wasted. And we were talking about this because I often feel like a lot was wasted in 2020, and you told me that nothing is wasted in 2020.
Yeah. And I know you had moments you just like you just lost the whole year, and it's been a struggle.
Yeah.
It's been heavy at times.
And I had a tough 2019, and I thought 2020 was going to kind of be the year.
Breakthrough year.
Yeah, it was like, okay, I'm not going to get held back by some of the things that were holding me back in 2019, which most of it was myself and my mentality and my choices. And now that we're in 2020, and I'm like, man, I really got stuck here. And so getting to introduce your line.
And yet, I want to say,
what?
You have been one of the most productive people I've seen anywhere in the world in 2020.
Well, I received that.
Our church would not be where it is today without your leadership.
Thank you.
Your teams are the most productive teams, I think, that I've seen almost anywhere in the world. And so I want to say, even though you've had a personally hard year, you didn't allow it to affect the quality of your productivity and your investment in Mosaic. Yeah. And every project I do, you are always the first volunteer who gives your time. So I want to thank you.
Sometimes by choice and sometimes not by choice.
But by voluntary say I don't pay you anything.
No, that is the life we have chosen to live. So shout out to Austin St. John, Nicole Lewis, Brian Hartley, Nick Kim, Garrett from Seattle, and Brooke Odom. Man, there's so many more. Is anybody the names that I'm missing? I said Nicole Lewis. Yeah. She was Tess Roy.
Yeah.
I don't count Tess Roy because this is the thing. I have a bone to pick with her. She took a 6-month vacation.
She had a baby.
She had a baby.
She did not have
a 6-month vacation.
It's a vacation.
She had 3 months.
I'm only joking. I'm only joking. I always wonder, like, where were you when all this was crazy? And she was like, I was having a baby. I'm like, you were on vacation.
And what was Brooke doing? She was off having a baby.
You were having a baby too.
You're so welcome for him.
Also, just so you know, I am joking. I do not want emails. I do not want DMs. I do not want Twitter posts. They're two of my favorite people, and it was hard doing it without these two people.
Was Milo born in January?
March, a week before everything shut down.
Okay, see, what I remember, because I don't have a sense of chronology, but I remember is that seeing you and Andres and Milo in the hospital was the last time I was in a hospital before the quarantine. So I couldn't remember one.
I remember.
Literally in March.
Yeah.
I mean, you came in at the
birthday?
Close of the free world.
On the 9th, and the next Monday, everything was closed.
Just think about this. As
Basketball
Milo grows
was canceled
up,
the next day.
You're going to say, Milo, you were born in the free world. And so he will be known as a free man.
Last free man.
Everyone born after March 15th was born in a different
pre-pandemic
world.
baby.
In the reset.
So I do not want to talk about COVID.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to go back and talk about the line coming out.
Yes, we're talking about the line coming out. So here we are. It's launching today. It's been a scramble, but it's been months in the making, and I'm really proud of you. I'm really excited for you as a son. I want to start. You have 2 lines. You have one line. You have one signature label, and then you have a line inside of that called Erwin.
Mm-hmm.
So Erwin Raphael McManus, ERM, and Erwin.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to kind of showcase.
Well, you asked me, you said something about that I was able to move fast in a couple of months.
Yes, you moved really quick. Oh, yes, the question.
Yeah.
The question is this. How are you able to move as fast as you can, completely unafraid, completely unapologetic, and make decisions in a way without this self-resistance or insecurity? Like, how are you able to accomplish so much so quick?
Sure. Oh, I want to begin by saying that it looks really fast because no one saw the slow part. And so I spend sometimes years processing this. And you know me, so you know I've thought about this for 10 years.
10 years.
I mean, I've been processing this for 10, even when you've like tried to talk me out of it.
I did a few times.
Yeah, you did talk me out a few times. And so it was always on a back burner. And so I spent a lot of my daydreaming time, a lot of my free time, a lot of my free thought time, imagining what I would do, imagining how I would do it, and then cataloging inside of myself every mistake I made the first time and everything I thought we did right the first time. And so I was creating this internal catalog of what I would call wisdom. And so once you begin to catalog that, when you step back in, you have that as your resource right away. So I would remind myself, okay, some of the things I did before that really messed me up was massive indecision.
Okay. I suffer from this.
I didn't trust my perspective. I was easily moved around by a lot of people's decisions along the way because I felt like everybody knew more than me. And later I would discover they knew less than me. They were just more confident than me.
Yeah, that's something I came to realize.
Yeah.
That you do have to be really assertive in this field.
It is, yeah. A field where opinion matters.
Opinion matters more than knowledge in the field.
Absolutely.
It does. And your ability to ask questions and to learn when no one's looking is really important, at least from what I've understood. Because I've had conversations with some of your fashion friends, and they will they're so quick to correct my lack of knowledge in this way. And I'm like, yes, I need to know these things. No, I don't need to know these things. I'm going to figure it out. But what I do love about it is you don't care at all about terminology or words or stitching. You're like, I want this to look like this. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. But you achieve it so well. You have an ability to communicate outside of the realm of language.
Outside of the realm of language. I don't know how to react to that, but thank you so much.
How are you creating in a different field that you necessarily don't know the terminology of? Like you genuinely, you know fashion, but you know it from such a different perspective. Like for me, it feels like you're painting colors with like smells. You know what I mean? Is that like synesthesia? But you're creating a synesthesia. You're like, I don't know. Keep going.
Yeah. Well, I think there's several things. So one of them is realizing that that really, when someone starts something new that's truly new, there are things you don't know and things. So you have to begin to trust your perspective. You have to have a sense of your vision of what you want to do, of your aesthetic, your essence. And one of the things I learned later on in the fashion industry was I had this European craftsman tell me, "You're not an American designer. You're a European designer." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And he said, "Americans design for what will sell, and you design out of your lifestyle."
I know, it makes me so mad. I'm like, you made how many of these?
I know.
Are we going to sell that? Who's buying this? How much? Who is we?
Or no one will buy that, Dad.
All the time.
No.
But I get it wrong so much.
Well, some of it for me is I came back going, I want to only create things that feel to me a reflection of me. They feel like they are something I would wear. They're an expression of my values, my essence, my perspective, what I think is beautiful, and just let it fall where it falls.
And it's colorful, which is something I really love. Like you make a few things that are black, but most of it is very colorful, and I really love that about your aesthetic, because even though I grew up you wearing a lot of black, you express yourself so much differently now in the style that you have. And I love it. I love that, like, I love that you're eccentric. I love that you'll wear things that are so unique and so different. I love that you express yourself in this unique way of fashion. Can you tell us anything behind it? You kind of mentioned in the last episode. So should we just jump right in and start showing some of the clothing?
It makes me nervous. Makes me. I'm a little nervous. This is 10 minutes into this. This is the sneak peek. This is the preview to my line. I think we're going to show you some signature line of Erwin Raphael McManus, and then we're going to show you a little, maybe 2 pieces from the Erwin line.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which the Erwin line's simple right now. 3 pieces.
It's very limited, but the Erwin Raphael line is limited in terms of how many units I have. So when you see a piece, I may only have made 10 of them.
You may have only made. Well, to be
honest,
some
of them I made 5 or 6 of them.
Yeah, and the coolest thing about the pants, each one is genuinely unique.
Each one is different because we gathered vintage materials, reconstructed them, and so there are no 2 pieces the same. Like with this short coat, there are no 2 pieces the same. So you can't say, "Oh, I want the one Erwin's wearing." You can't have this one because this one is mine. I'm keeping this one, okay? And unless you want to, start an auction or something like that.
An auction?
Yeah, auction. Yeah. And but there are different options, which I love. Is like no one's going to have the piece exactly like yours. Right now.
Which really does something for me because I don't like owning things that other people have. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just don't, some things are okay, but like you want to express yourself differently, more uniquely. Mm-hmm. So it's cool that this is complete expression of your imagination and your ability to create. Here we go. We're going to take a look at a few of the pieces, which is exciting for me.
I'm excited and properly terrified.
And we're going to have to describe this in such detail because if you're listening to this, you're just listening to this. The reason why we're doing this is 1, it's exciting for us. You're our people, so we want to present this to you first. Mm-hmm. 2, I think I love this idea of like starting from scratch. How do we create new things in a season where it feels like everything's ending? How do we create new things? Here we go. We're going to look at the first piece.
And for me, this is exciting because Battle Ready is like our family. You guys are a community or a tribe. And so I'm bringing you into my inside world. This is our first released photograph.
Okay, tell us a little. What is it made out of?
Well, this is the World War II canvas that I've had in a warehouse for over a decade. And it's uniquely cut so that the details of those tent materials are actually highlighted where we want them. So you can see the sleeves have the military buttons that interconnect. We have a zipper lined up on the on the outside edge. And it's beautifully rustic. It's very masculine, even though the line is really co-ed.
Yeah.
And we went in and added a zipper design to the top, which we just thought that gave it some texture and some structure that we were looking for in this anorak parka. And then it has a hoodie over it. And I made the front part of the hoodie a little higher because we're in this COVID stage, and I thought if you don't want to always wear a mask, you can always put the hood and just button it up, and then no one knows you don't have a mask on that moment, or it becomes your mask in that moment. And also the pants are the same basic thematic imagery where you have this vintage material, and then you have
kind of this reworked flare thing going on, which is really cool. But what I love about this is literally one of one, which I hope you do more of these. Because this is the only one that's like that.
And so I'm looking, we'll go through our tons and tons and tons of material. We find some materials with this kind of design and snap design. And then also this patchwork is from our tent material. So we look for where there's some names and numbers and different symbols along the way. And it's kind of cool. On some of them, we found these old 1944, 46 images with M's on them. And so we're able to attach them on different pieces along the way.
That's really cool.
You can see the piece I'm wearing is similar to the other piece that Gab was wearing, but very, very different than John Thomas. As you can see the fit on him. Of course, everything fits really well on him.
Yeah. What I love about even just these pants is probably the softest things I've ever tried on in my entire life.
Yeah, I'm wearing them right now, and they feel like pajamas. So they've definitely been worn in.
So what is this affinity you have to kind of this vintage World War II thing? Because we used to make men's bags out of this, and they were beautiful. They were super impractical in that they were so heavy.
They were too heavy for travel.
Too heavy for travel, and I traveled the world with them, selling them to stores and to wholesale and markets and things like that. But you stuck with it. You stuck with it. You held on to it.
Years ago, this fashion magazine in Paris did a story on me and my work, and one of the core themes I told myself, for me, heroism is a style, and that if you take that core idea that there's this heroic person inside of all of us, and that when we get dressed every day, we're putting on our Batman cape or our Superman cape, we're putting on our S for hope, and that really when you get dressed, you're making a statement about yourself. And I think I'm really drawn to World War II because it's a genuinely heroic era of American history. And even with all like the tensions and controversies about America's historical narrative and the good and the bad and the just and the unjust, I think we would all agree that those men and women who went to war in World War II were fighting for the world's freedom, and they were doing something incredibly noble and heroic. And so I am very drawn. And in fact, years ago, I was on a flight with Project Runway, Tim Gunn.
Tim Gunn.
I was on a plane with Tim Gunn. We talked for like 5 hours together. I was talking to him about my philosophy of fashion. I showed him a few pieces. I talked to him about heroism being a style. And Tim Gunn, who at that time I felt like was a legend, told me, "You're exactly on point. I've never heard anyone describe how the actual pivotal shift in fashion was World War II." And because I talked about how American fashion took over because European fashion was destroyed during World War II. And that then the imagery and the style and the essence of like the American warrior became almost like a definitive statement of heroism and honor and courage. So I kind of like holding on to that, and I will find a way of expressing that as long as I can.
Yeah,
which I think is really important.
I love it. And what I think is really interesting, you say it so beautifully, but this really does feel like a continuation of what we were doing before with a new narrative. That it's like on our own terms, our own team, a new team, I think a more positive environment, a healthier atmosphere, and we are coming back with knowledge that we didn't have before. Yeah. Like we really did not know what we were doing back then.
No, not at all.
Not at all. Like we knew less than they did, but they didn't know much more, but we did learn from them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the beauty in all this, that like we've now kind of gone into a space where we know now what we did not know then.
Yeah,
and we're going to create something completely different.
And just so much more clarity now. And I've given myself permission to create what I want and to trust that what I create will have an audience. There's someone out there who will go, this is exactly what I wanted. This is exactly what I've wanted to reflect my inner world, and something, a style that brings me joy. And I want every piece to bring people joy. I want every piece to create a provoke like optimism and hope and honor and courage.
I think there's a lot of people out there that would say that not only are they afraid to create what they want, but they're afraid to live in that reality of, I'm just going to create what I enjoy and not what sells. Because there is a fine line in art of like art that is self-indulgent.
Yes.
And there's an art that actually is, creates a space that other people can live in.
Yeah. And that's a great point, because I always would say that immature artists only create for themselves, and mature artists create for others. And I think a part of this is, like when I would buy a piece of clothes that I loved, I was actually grateful to the designer for making something I wish I could create. And I don't know if you ever worn a piece and you thought, oh man, I wish I could have, designed this, or this is exactly what it would make if I did this. Or watch a movie and go, wow, if I could make a movie, this is the movie I would make. I'm always grateful when someone else creates what I wish I could create. And I think that's a part of the line, is that I think there's a lot of people who would love this kind of expression, but maybe they don't have the opportunity or the capacity to create it. So I get to, in a sense, be a midwife for them. I get to give birth to something that they want to live in and enjoy. And by the way, I mean, if you look at the pants, we did not remove a lot of the imperfections.
No, you left everything imperfect.
Yeah, and part of the sub-theme for me is the beauty is in the imperfection.
Yeah.
And it's a part of what informs everything that we do, that the beauty is in the imperfection. And that's what informed Mosaic too. I knew Mosaic would never be perfect because I'm not perfect. That there would always be this thing about Mosaic that's defined by raw beauty. And I want people to know that in their life too, that the beauty is in the imperfection. The beauty of who you are, Aaron, is in the imperfection. It's like, and I think sometimes that's a part of the problem in our culture. We want to medicate all the imperfections, and we're actually medicating all the genius. And human beings are supposed to be imperfect. We're broken pieces. We're raw beauty, and I want the pieces to be a reflection of that kind of beauty.
That's amazing. Let's move on to the next one. So this is the jacket you're wearing now. This is the Chore Jacket. This is kind of this you said multi-paneled Chore Jacket.
It's like multiple fabrics, multiple textures. And I have 3 of them right now that I've been rotating in my closet for a while now. And so we were shooting literally the 3 jackets that I've been working with. And some of them are softer in the sleeves and harder in the body. Some of them are softer in the body and have more rigid materials in the sleeves. And each one, this one, it looks so much more constructed in the sleeves, and you can see the softness in the body. And there's others that are much more structured in the body and really, really soft and comfortable in the sleeves. And then the color combinations, we went with colors that kind of match this late fall, winter kind of feel. So I love brown, and I've said for years that brown is one of my favorite colors, and I go to black because you can't find great browns. And in fact, when I was a kid growing up, I was a little compulsive. I had my clothes lined out for all 5 days of school. I wore brown on Monday, I wore brown on Wednesday, and I wore brown on Friday. Then I wore blue on Tuesday and green on Thursday. And my mom would say, we don't need to take photographs of you because you look exactly the same. And a lot of it's because I was so indecisive that I would spend an hour trying to figure out what am I going to wear.
There's actually a conversation about this that I think Scott Harrison told me when I first worked for him. And I worked for him for 3 months because I was a terrible employee. And he was a very generous and very gracious employer who gave me a chance. And he told me something that he said, most geniuses in the morning try to reduce the amount of choices they have to make. There was like a whole study done with it afterwards. I think he's one of the first people that were pretty like vocal about this. Like, reduce the amount of decisions you have to make before 6 or 7 a.m. so that you are left with the creativity to make the important decisions later on in the day. But I think so many times we exhaust ourselves with what we're going to wear, what we're going to do, or what we're going to... And then there's people who thrive off of it. So I don't know if that theory entirely holds up, but I do think that there is something beautiful about the OCD and the way that you dress, because I love that about you. You'll wear the same thing for like weeks, but then you'll like alter it like piece by piece by piece by piece. And I always say that like you would have been an incredible buyer for a company because you always pick the thing that other people go, no, that's the thing. And I've showed this to some friends, and some friends are like, there's no way. I was like, there's no way. And then everyone that is like semi-cool that I've showed this to is like, yeah, it's my favorite thing I've ever put on in my entire life. And I'm like, okay. So, and then we photographed it, and I was like, this is my favorite thing photographed.
This is beautiful.
So beautiful, so unique. And what I do love about this is that this will be a stretch for some people because they'll go like, well, I want consistency. Like every piece has to be the same. It's like, no, you can guarantee that this piece will be genuinely unique. And you will have to like it's a blind date of sorts. Like this is what it looks like, but it also will look very different.
But a lot of guys tell me, in fact, I have a lot of friends who tell me, look, I don't have any taste. So I basically look at what you wear, and then my wife goes and buys something similar to you.
I have so many of my friends who will be like, we literally tell him to dress more like your dad. Like, tell my dad to dress more like your dad. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. Dress how you like you feel comfortable.
So this is a way of giving people some uniqueness and also some continuity where you go, okay, I can see this on someone else and it looks really great. So anyway, so a lot of this line has a lot of earthy tones in it because I love the browns. I love the earth tones.
Yes.
I love autumn, and this reflects a lot of that. That first bomber you bought me was that kind of military green because olive and brown have always been two of my favorite colors along with mustard.
Yeah.
That's kind of like my palette. So I let a lot of the things be expressed in this line.
Yeah, and the cool thing too is like when I bought that jacket for you from Jerry, you had no idea about the brand, and I had never met Jerry before.
Right.
And he's a lovely human being, but we had the green bags, and so I kind of bought this because I was like, hey, this is kind of, you've always talked about. We were talking about making clothes.
Yes, and I really wanted to.
And we had just hired the team, and we had just built the office in New York, and then right before everything kind of like shut down for us, we had turned this corner, and then we never did it. And I buy this thing being like, this could be what it's like for us. And now 10 years later, we're in a place where this jacket is like literally this is the difference, is like, this is you, not me. But what I love about it is I trust you. And so you make some incredible decisions to wear things that I would never wear. And then I see it and then I'm like, okay, that's unfair because everything looks good on you and I've got to take a risk. But that's what I do love about the collection. You could easily do some things that would sell, that would make sense. Mm-hmm. And you were like, nope. I'm gonna use like super vintage, super ripped up, super imperfect, super destroyed. I'm gonna make people want to come and touch it or order it to see what it's like. So can we go to the next one?
Yeah, because the next one is going back to the basics that I do wear black a lot.
A lot.
In fact, some days it seems like that's all I wear.
Yeah, I think like we go through seasons of it.
And I think black is sort of like the classic go-to. And I love sweats. And we were talking about making sweats, oh my gosh, over a decade ago.
Forever.
And because I would fly.
Now it's such a big thing, but it's funny because.
Do you remember?
You literally, at one point I was like, do you have real pants? Because all you would wear is sweatpants. Like, do you remember? Like, all you would wear is sweatpants.
Yeah, and I kept saying, we need to make sweatpants. I'm telling you, we need to wear clothes you can wear on an airplane, walk off the airplane, and go to the meeting.
Because our initial concept when we were making, we had our first line designed out, and we were about to start making menswear, and we had talked about the idea. The whole idea was around your lifestyle of a traveler. Like, can you wear this from your home to a plane, to a boardroom, or to a platform, a stage, and then add a jacket or add a layer, and never really change out of the sweatpant look?
Yeah, because I've traveled to Tokyo and found out my luggage went to Cairo. And so then you're going, okay, I got to wear one thing.
That is how it happened. And I do think it was China when you were in Hong Kong, because I remember I came 3 days later because you didn't have a bag and I brought a bag and you had lost yourself and you're like, I've been preaching in the same t-shirt and sweatpants. I just keep buying a jacket or a different overshirt because I don't have anything left.
Yep. And so I basically said, look, I want to be able to, whatever I fly in, I want to be able to speak in. I want to be able to go to the meeting in. I want to be able to work in.
Yeah.
And if I have to, I want to be able to sleep in.
Yeah.
So we went ahead and put together this collection of black on black hoodie and sweatpants.
It might be the most soft thing I've ever put on my body.
Well, what I've done with everything, I've worn everything for 3 days at a time to see how they feel, to see how they wear. I hate when I buy something that I think is really like beautiful, and then I never want to wear it again because it's so uncomfortable.
You've actually been washing things too, which I hate because I
know you don't want me to do that, but I wanted to make sure
that it held up.
It held up, even though I would tell people don't wash my stuff. Dry clean it. But I wore those sweatpants and for 3 days straight, and maybe the hoodie, and I did shower in between.
Yes.
But so incredibly comfortable and still looks really, really fitted and luxurious.
Yeah, and there's some logos on here that aren't shown, but
at this time, because you have to save something for the website.
Because these are the samples and there's some cooler like little details.
Yeah, some details will be added.
But I think it's really cool because we're showing a lot of John Thomas but it is really unisex, and it is for men and women. And for women, it's just going to be a bit blockier, but for men and men, it'll be a little bit more fitted. But this is like such a cool, I think, aspect of what you're doing. And this is interesting because you're finding these like old vintage jackets, and then you're reworking them with your designs.
I love this jacket. And what was on the back was just
some crazy beast or something.
It was really bad,
like a skull, like crazy, like bull skull thing.
And so we wanted to redeem it, and
this kind of goes back to your roots of like you grew up Roman Catholic.
I did grow up Roman Catholic.
You're going to get shredded for this jacket.
I know I'm going to get shredded about that. It's the version of Guadalupe.
It's a version of Guadalupe.
But it was your idea.
It was
your idea.
I did, but then I did say you should put
Jesus,
the statue of Jesus that sits in San Salvador.
But when I looked at the aesthetics, I looked at the designs, the jacket just seemed to be calling that image. It just seemed like it fit. And a part of it for me, I thought, this is really interesting because having been born Roman Catholic, one interesting thing is that you're raised to believe in miracles.
Right.
You're raised to believe that God shows up, that there are manifestations or anything.
Yeah.
And so even though I'm not necessarily affirming the mythology of it, I'm affirming the human need to connect to the transcendent, to the spiritual, to the divine. And I just think it's a beautiful piece of art.
Things just look cool.
And
here it is. He looks really
that looks
cool.
So good. And it's a one of a kind.
It is a one of a kind.
And
there's only one.
Yep.
And that's and
I have quite a few things that are one of a kind because I found pieces. We want to do something special with them.
I know we've contemplated like, are we really going to sell this thing because there's only one of a kind? But if you're listening to this, we want you to know the photos are really cool, and we're going to be posting them later on probably both of our Instagrams.
Do we have any others left?
I think we do.
Let's see what we got.
We have a photo of the boss.
There I am wearing what I'm wearing right now.
What are you wearing right now?
That was day 1 or day 2 of wearing that the clothes with our battle ready cap to boot.
Hey, I want to say this, and this is you wearing a different jacket, but I want to say this.
But look at this. Same concept, different colors, and looks completely different.
It is. And this is the thing I want to say is as we wrap this up, like I'm just super proud of you.
Hey, thank you.
And we were kind of like talking over the weekend. We went and got bagels at at the farmer's market.
So good.
It was so good. And we were just talking about like all of the things we've been able to do together and all the risks we've been able to take together. And I know that there's so many people who are listening to Battle Ready podcast who have just reached out and said thank you, reached out and said I'm hurting, reached out and said I love this is inspiring. And I hope that people don't look at this and see this and go, we're making a gigantic commercial for your brand. I want them to see it and know that it is a commercial for your brand because this, like, it's a commercial for creativity. It's a commercial for creating at a crisis. It's a commercial for not being afraid to follow your dreams. It's a commercial for being 62 years old and saying, I'm not going to let anyone else define my future other than my relationship with your wife and God. And I mean that because I say that I applaud you in your bravery and I applaud you in your ability to take risks. And I hope you take us with you because I love everything that you do. I'm a fan in the good and the bad. And this is really good.
I'm excited and nervous. And we've put a lot of sweat, blood, tears, and money into it.
Yeah.
And Kim has been super supportive. And, I'm sure she's a little nervous now.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But thank you. I wouldn't have done this episode if you had not asked me to. And
I want to do this.
I'm always really apprehensive about selling anything I create, which is sort of insane.
It's insane. It's insane. And you asked me this weekend, you're like, I want you to have a role in the company. What's your role? And I said, I want to be the person who says no to everything you give away for free.
Oh, yeah. I've had so many friends who have already heard saying, hey, is there a family and friends discount? And I said, all of you are my family and friends, so there isn't a discount.
But I do love it. And
that's because I have no giant sponsor or corporations behind me.
Yeah, you're just taking a risk. And I think it fits in this series of starting from scratch. And I'm really excited because we've reached out to some really close friends of yours and like about having this conversation of starting from scratch. And so I hope if you're listening and you're like, well, this is a bit different than what you guys are normally talking about, I hope that you know that with Battle Ready, expect the unexpected. Never get too comfortable. Think freely, question everything, and come prepared to not know exactly what we're going to talk about, but be willing to go there with us. Because what I love about this podcast is probably the number one feedback I get is I didn't know where you were going for 25, 30 minutes of it, and then all of a sudden just started dropping things, boom, 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 and I'm like, no, this is like the romance of the podcast. Like it takes time to build up, and it's like a movie. It develops, and this is what I love about this podcast, and I keep saying that, but I'm genuinely grateful, and I love that we get to do this.
No, me too. But the same energy it took to start the podcast is it takes to start anything from scratch, and you have to realize that everything worth doing can fail, and it can succeed. Yeah. And that a huge part of it is you just have to believe that that what you have to offer is worth the effort. And just like with our podcast, we can't make anyone listen. We just invite people to listen and are grateful for everyone who joins us. It's the same way when you start a fashion line, you can't make people buy it. You have to create something that inspires people that they want to buy it. And in a sense, creating is a gift. I think Battle Ready has become a gift to people. I get so many responses from people telling me this is their number one podcast. This is what they look forward to every single week. And in the same way that we've started Battle Ready, the same way I've started Erwin Raphael McManus and Erwin, in the same way that we started Mosaic years ago, there is a communal genius that can be accessed. And when you say, how did you start from scratch and how do you build something like this? I go, never limit your genius to your own intelligence. Reach out to other people, get other people involved, get people in the conversation, let other people help you to refine and clarify your perspective. And as you get feedback from people, you'll build a deeper confidence for what you're creating. And prepare for both failure and success. You prepare for failure by deciding that it's worth doing even if it doesn't work. You prepare for success by realizing that if this actually goes, my life is going to get more complicated. As this company goes forward, if everything sells out, now I'm really in trouble. Now I have to come back and recreate and reimagine and not stay where I was. And I actually think for many people, they prepare for failure, but they don't prepare for success. And when you prepare for success, you actually begin to think bigger, broader, more dynamically. And that's something I think we have to help people learn in the future podcasts.
I love it. I love it. We disagree so much about stuff. And there's so much more here because we had incredible conversations on Sunday, like pre-launch and what we expected of each other and all of this. And you were like, I'm expecting for success. And I was like, okay. All right. Every single person listening to this, we love you so much. We're so grateful for you. You can rate and review this podcast on iTunes. You can listen to it on Spotify and YouTube. You can share with your friends. You can follow us at Battle Ready Podcast on Instagram. And I'm really excited. I'm really looking forward to the future of what we're building here with you guys and us together on this pod.
And if you want to know more about the new line, if you want to actually go and purchase something, go to
ErwinRaphaelMcManus.com.
All right. Thank you guys so much.
Okay. Talk soon. Goodbye.